Howdy, and welcome to the White Hat Law Show with Warren Nord, where we cover a mix of current events, politics, and the law. Take it away, Warren.
Welcome to White Hat Law. I'm Warren Norrid, and today we're going to be talking about the Tea Party as it exists in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, both past, present, and future. And with me today to discuss this are two of my friends, Ken Emanuelson, who I've known since about 2009 when I attended one of his trainings somewhere in Dallas or Fort Worth. We don't know where it was, but Ken was foundational in the Dallas Tea Party and all that it was, and the big fun. I've seen him on Fox and all sorts of fun things. Also with me is Fran Rhodes. Fran is the vice president of, let me get this right, the Northeast Tarrant Tea Party.
You got it right.
I have attended several times, but I probably said that the wrong way several times too. And so Fran is here to help us with what's going on the Tarrant County side. And of course, it started in Dallas, so the viewers probably like to know what the brief history of how it all got started.
Well, actually the backstory of how I got involved was there was the Tea Party buzz was starting. This all came out in wake of Rick Santelli's rant on CNBC. It was sort of what came to be the Tea Party manifesto, and so in the wake of that speech, and people started talking about, hey, we should do these. We should, instead of waiting for July 4th or whatever, he said, everybody should do a Tea Party demonstration in their city, wherever it is. And so there was a group of guys, I think 3 or 4 people in the Dallas area that were on this big nationwide phone call that got organized on social media. I wasn't on the call, but they got connected to each other. And a friend of mine called me in the wake of that call. He said, hey, do you have a PA system? I said, yeah, I've got a PA system. He goes, well, we're putting on this Tea Party rally and we need a PA system. So you think we could use your PA system? I said, yeah, sure, that sounds great. So he said, well, there's a meeting. I said, well, I want to know a little bit about what's going on, but sure, it sounds great. So we showed up at one of the meetings, and we kind of talked about what we were going to do. And we ended up organizing to be over there at right in front of the American Airlines Center on the street corner. And we didn't know, we thought, well, maybe it'll just be the 3 or 4 of us there. Who knows if anybody, but we put the word out and spread it on social media. And sure enough, we had like 300 people show up to our little street corner demonstration. And that was how I got involved. And we went from there. That was on February 28th, and we turned around and organized an event for Tax Day, April 15th. We did that in front of City Hall, and then from there we went on and did our July 4th event. We did that at South Fork Ranch. So we had, and we went from there to, we said, okay, the rallies are great. We've had a lot of fun, but have we really changed? We've gotten a lot of exposure that we like to speak out and speak our mind, but have we really changed anything? Or is any of this going to change anything? And we all kind of realized that just having rallies and just having demonstrations, it was a great way to vent. It was a great way to kind of meet people, but it really wasn't going to change anything that we were complaining about. And that's when we decided we need to have organization, we need to have training, we need to empower activists to get out and do what they feel in their heart they need to do something. What can we do to find people that have actually been doing this, connect them with people that want to learn? And we kind of transitioned then over into a much more of an activist, boots on the ground sort of an operation than just the demonstrations. So that's sort of a very brief 10,000-foot view of how we got it.
Now, Fran got involved in one of those workshops, right?
Yes, actually, my first experience was on Tax Day 2009. I went to one of those Tax Day rallies in South Lake, and that's when I first heard about Northeast Tarrant Tea Party, and I started attending their meetings. But Northeast Tarrant started out as Grapevine Tea Party, and then Colleyville had one, and they said, well, you're small, we're small, can we join together? And then several other cities kind of did the same, and we've kind of coalesced into a pretty good-sized group now, covering all of Northeast Tarrant County, about 13 different cities and towns. And of course, since then, we've also kind of expanded our focus beyond Northeast Tarrant County, and we're trying to influence things statewide.
Absolutely, and as well you should. We had a Tea Party in Arlington, and I think we still have a website and a Facebook page for it, but it kind of cratered after a while because you have to have leadership, right? You have to.
Yeah, leadership is key in any volunteer organization, of course, but in a political focused organization, I think it's even more important. And I think the success comes from being focused on the group and the mission, and rather than being worried about personal glory or fighting with other groups. Are they going to get credit or are we going to get credit? As long as we all have the same goal and the same mission, I think that's what's important, and that's where leadership needs to be.
Well, both of you experienced this. Tea Party kind of started off as a purely, I wouldn't say purely, but a lot of it was economic,
Yes.
based on opposition to the bailouts. And of course, later it became opposition to Obamacare. And people say, well, it's all racist because it's, Obama's black, as though we weren't opposed to the expansion of prescription drug Part D or bailouts by any number of presidents, whatever color they are. Would you say that it seems like there's a strong social component to the Tea Party group in Northeast Tarrant or Northeast County? Where's Northeast Tarrant Tea Party?
Northeast Tarrant Tea Party. I wouldn't say there's a large social component. Our core beliefs are all based on responsibility, fiscal responsibility, personal responsibility, the Constitution, the rule of law, things like that. Now, as individuals, I think that we're all very socially conservative, and I think you would not find anybody that participates with us that isn't. But that's not what we focus on. We focus on our 5 core beliefs, which mostly boil down to economic and fiscal issues.
Is that true in Dallas?
Yes, I think there is. I think it somewhat is probably, and there is a social component certainly in Dallas County. I think there over the years, I think I have seen a little bit of a difference in the sense that just Dallas County, just the population of the Tea Parties is a little bit more probably more focused on the fiscal and less on the social. But like our people are all very pro-life, for example. Right. But I think if you looked at the Tarrant County Republicans versus the Dallas County Republicans as a group, you're going to find a more, and honestly, more conservative in general group in Tarrant County, just all across the board. They're probably more fiscally conservative than the Dallas County Republicans, and they're more socially conservative than the Dallas County Republicans. So, the Tea Parties, that's kind of one of the beauties of the Tea Parties, is they come up from the local people that have their points of view. And so the Tea Parties have had different, they will have a little different flavor depending on where you go. We have, like on the southwest part, we've had Tea Parties that have Democrat members because that's most of the people in those areas are Democrats, but they will get involved. Some of the more, I guess, conservative Democrats get involved in the Tea Party.
Well, the Tea Party has filled that hole. There's always been this idea of a conservative Republican or conservative political group that's not Republicans, because there's a lot of kind of what's left over from the boll weevil Democrats. These people are just never going to join the Republican Party, but they're still conservative. And so the Tea Party seemed to give those folks a place to show up and participate, and they don't have to join the Republican Party. Certainly there was a lot of leadership in the Arlington Tea Party early on that were boll weevil Democrats, without a doubt, but they were strong, fiscally conservative, and so they were which that wasn't rare 50 years ago. It's kind of rare these days. You're either on one side of the chasm or the other. It's hard to bridge that. But it seems as though also in Dallas County you have not done the coalescing that's happened in Tarrant.
Yeah, we actually went and by design we actually went the other direction, because we started out with this giant group. The Dallas Tea Party kind of sucked up a lot of the oxygen in the early days, and so we, a group of us that were kind of in the inside there, we decided amongst ourselves what we really need to do is decentralize. We preach that we believe in decentralization. We tell the federal government we need to move power back to the states, and we tell the states you need to move power back to the local communities, and yet we tell the communities you need to move power back to the individuals, and yet we've kind of almost, because just by default we've tended to, we've got this huge mailing list, we've got this everything's kind of centralized right now. We need to go the opposite direction. We need to decentralize. We don't need one Tea Party. We need dozens of Tea Parties in this area, and so what we did was we actually went the other direction. We broke our entire email list up by zip code, and we found local activists and said, hey, if you've got a group, if you're willing to organize monthly meetings, we'll allow you to use this list, and you can put out to the 50 people or whatever that are in this zip code a message about your meeting and start to organize them in your community. So we actually had that happen. So yeah, that's exactly what happened, but it was by design. We actively worked to push things down to the local and activist level.
Well, certainly get the benefit of the, by doing that, of course, you don't have to worry. And one of the problems with me, I don't attend the Arlington Republican Club very often just because I have to go all the way across town to do it. And yet that's probably my most stable political club that I've been involved with for more than 20 years. But it's all the way across town, so it's hard. So if you have a club meeting or an organization it's going to take 30 minutes just to get there, that's hard to do, especially in Dallas.
Right. And we knew that at a Dallas level or even a North Texas level, we weren't going to be able to deal with city council races and things. I mean, how would you do that if you have a big meeting and you want to give the city council folks and the people from that district the opportunity to interface? Right. That doesn't work very well when you've got the whole Dallas County. But if you've got a local group that's maybe 2 or 3 zip codes, it's easy enough to say, well, we overlap 2 city council districts, let's bring those guys in and we can have time to talk with them. So we were very much about decentralizing from very early on, and it's worked out in some cases and it didn't work out in other cases. In some areas we've kind of got, we actually at one point in all the suburban areas, we had coverage. We had a Tea Party in Richardson and Garland, in Mesquite, in everywhere, Irving, and over time some of those have kind of gone quiet. Some of them are still active though. So.
Well, it's interesting because it seems two different. It's not that Northeast said I want to suck up all the oxygen, but having a good meeting in a place that's easy to get to relatively has been very successful. And you have good meetings, and so you have several hundred people attend every meeting, right? I mean,
average about 150, I think, and a lot of times we'll have upwards of 200.
Right.
And that's every single month, and that's been going on for 9 years now.
That's pretty impressive.
So, I think that's one of the keys to success is to have interesting things going on. But the other thing that I heard from people a lot in the beginning was, especially people that came from other places, I go to Tea Party or I go to Republican Club or whatever, and it's just nothing but meetings. I want to actually do something. Right. And I feel like that's one of the ways that we've kind of really stepped up is we have programs where people can really get involved, really make a difference. We go all out for elections.
Well, that's a good place to take a break. What we'll do is we'll come back and we'll talk about what Tea Party has done in elections and see where we are today. So we'll be right back in a minute.
Whoa, hang on to your hat, folks. More with Warren Nord when we get back. Y'all are back here listening to the White Hat Law Show. Warren, who do we have up next?
Welcome back. We've been talking with Ken Emanuelson and Fran Rhodes of the Dallas and Tarrant sides of the House on Tea Parties. Let's talk about elections. Now, I don't pay much attention to what's happening on the east side of 360. I always tell people 360 is the end of the East, the beginning of the West, and I go to Dallas on a routine basis. But what involvement has Tea Parties had in elections?
Well, I talked a little bit about our philosophy. One of the other areas of our philosophy was that at the group level or at the organizational level, we would inform the activists and empower them to get involved, but we would not, as groups, pick this person versus that person. So we would host, and there was a good reason for that. I mean, we wanted even the liberal to feel like they could come in and that they weren't speaking to a group that had already endorsed their opponent. Right. We wanted to be able to do debates and have forums where the folks that maybe the 60 or 70% of the membership didn't like that or didn't support that guy, but we preached to them, look, bring them in, listen to them, let them speak, and let them know that they're at least going to get a fair hearing, even if we don't agree with them. So we made a decision early on. We weren't going to do an organizational decision or an organizational endorsements. But what we have done, though, is that we've done it where we will bring in all the candidates, listen to them, hear them out, and then we'll let all of our people know when the different events are to help this candidate or that candidate. So, for example, back during the very high-profile Huffines Corona race, you had Corona, who was he was at that point the most left-wing member of the Texas Senate on the Republican side, and he was being challenged by Don Huffines. Well, none of our Tea Party groups came in and said, we're endorsing Don Huffines. What they did is they allowed both of them to come in and speak. And then they said, hey, if you want to go help Corona, go over here, and this is on Sunday or Saturday or whatever, if you want to go help Don Huffines. Now, in reality, what ends up happening is all of our people are like, yeah, I'm with Huffines, so they go show up.
But that's not always the case.
Not always. And so sometimes you will have you'll have two somewhat conservative candidates, and there's just a difference of opinion as to who's the better. And you might have a 2/3 and 1/3. And we decided we would be much more unifying and allow all of our folks to be heard if we kept the organization out of the endorsement game, and of course the leader of the group might endorse, but he'd say, hey, I'm supporting this person, just FYI, but I'm not doing it as the group. It's just me as an individual, and we've stuck to those rules, and it's allowed us to hold the forums and be a place that the liberals don't really want to go into the lion's den, but they know that they're coming into a place that is going to give them, at least we hope, a fair hearing, even if they know they're a somewhat hostile audience. But that said, the activists have gotten very involved at the individual level. So, again, we got very involved behind the activists, got very involved behind Don Huffines. They got very involved behind Bob Hall when he was challenging Bob Dole. Got him behind Matt Rinaldi. And we had some missteps too. We helped Ken Sheets. We helped Cindy Burkett. Some of our people helped Jason Villalba when these guys were first coming up. And we've since corrected all those mistakes. I'm happy to say this last election we hopefully ended the political careers of Sheets, Burkett, and Villalba. So we'll see, though. They're like zombies. They keep coming back.
Well, sometimes people evolve and learn.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
That's a good thing. So, and what has happened in Tarrant County? I know I'm more familiar with that one, but I don't hear it from you.
Well, and one of the differences is demographics between the two counties are very different. I think
No doubt.
You have a lot more Democrats over in the Dallas side than we do in Tarrant County. So we don't have to put up with that as much. So I understand that strategy. But we kind of do the same as a group. We don't officially endorse, we make recommendations. And that's based usually on a poll of our board members. There are 8 of us. And so at every election, we all vote, if I could vote for this person, for this race, this is who I vote for. And we publish that. We find that people are very hungry for those kinds of recommendations because they frequently don't know, or they might know the high-profile things like Don Huffines, but they don't know about the judge of the 232nd court.
Right. I've seen the postcard that
Yes.
you guys put out, and it in more than one race, it had more than one name.
Yes, we don't always agree 100%.
But it's helpful. I think that there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely.
It's very difficult to get to know the candidates in those down ballot races because you just don't have the opportunity unless you happen to know the person personally for some other reason. So it's very hard to decide. For me, it was always good to be able to say, well, these 6 people that I know and respect are going to vote for this person, so that's good for me. Well,
people think, but even attorneys, I know a lot of these judges, right?
Yes.
And I've been in many of these judges' courts, but not all of them. I don't practice probate very often.
Right.
So I don't, I don't know who to vote for that. So I'm going to call up my friends that do work in that. And they say, what up with this? And they tell me. And so none of us can be everywhere. I mean, this is how Obamacare got passed, because you can't read all the bills, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to trust some of your friends sometimes. But it's been, I know that you guys have been very instrumental in a number of the races. Stickland, for sure.
We've had some big successes, and it started in 2012 where we were able to unseat 4 really liberal incumbents in the House races. That was Stickland, Stephanie Click, Matt Krause, and Giovanni Capriglione. In fact, I was just looking up some statistics before I came down. In 2007 to 2011, according to Empower Texans scorecard, the overall average rating of those 4 House representatives was 74.2 83 or something like that. In 2013, it jumped to 98 point something.
Yes.
So we were able to flip that very well. Now, I don't know what that rating would be today because one of those four is not as conservative as he promised to be.
But I think he's going to wind up being much better under new leadership.
We hope so.
I think that under new leadership we're going to see just a huge change.
But all four of those people still have their seats. They've been reelected
Right.
3 times now, and
there were some serious challenges to a couple of them, a couple cycles back. I was kind of worried, but no, it turns out you trumped them.
and then in 2014 we kind of expanded that, and we worked with Rinaldi and Craig Goldman and Bill Zedler and
Tony
Tinderholt.
Right.
Yes, and there were 9 candidates that we were heavily working
I'm
with
very-
in 2014.
It'd be hard pressed to find a group of elected representatives to the state house from a small area that are as good as what we have in Tarrant County. And that's
Absolutely.
largely a
Absolutely.
huge product of the Tea Party in Tarrant County. You bet.
I have to echo. That's absolutely right. It was when we started this whole project that the Tea Party came along. The east part of Tarrant County was not anything to write home about in terms of representation. A very conservative voting base, and just in a lot of cases horrible representation. And you guys have done a great job in turning that around. And
But you got Rinaldi,
we've got Rinaldi, thank God, or else
Yeah,
we've got Rinaldi, and then we've got some others that are okay-ish. But unfortunately, it has been our population, our Republican voter base. I think in a lot of cases, we can make the case that. And nail it down that this candidate is the more conservative, and a lot of the Republicans are like, yeah, I think that. I had one. I remember that I think summed it up pretty well. I talked to a guy and I said, well, so and so is the more conservative. I was walking, and he says, I think we've got enough conservatives in the state house.
Yeah, people always say that.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to be. Do you want your bank account to be moderate? Do you want your health to be moderate? No, I want to be in extremely good shape. I don't want to be moderate. A little bit of cancer in one arm would be good.
So this last cycle, I did a lot of work for Lisa Luby Ryan, who just defeated Jason Villalba, and that was a big win.
I was very
happy with
surprised.
that one. It was touch and go for me because even though I had no questions to who was the better candidate, the truth is that there are significant parts of that district that think Villalba's just fine. They know that he's a liberal. In fact, had he not embarrassed himself, it didn't really have. I think a lot of his problems had to do not so much with him being too liberal for the district, but it had to do with him being just a clown. When you make national headlines and you have websites that come up from far outside the district, we need to fire Jason Villalba, and it's founded in Connecticut. That's bad. You're embarrassing yourself. And so he went down in large part because he's a clown, but also because when we did communicate to the voters, there still was a significant base of conservative voters there that did get in behind Jason, but I think did get in behind Lisa. But I think we also were able to rely on the fact that he'd made himself a caricature.
That by itself, that change will make a big difference.
That's right.
Let me just ask a side note. Is there any chance that, can we say goodbye to a Republican Dallas County, or is there a chance, are you guys still hovering, or is it
at the
close
county
to
level? Demographically, all the trends are in a direction that make it exceedingly difficult for the Republicans to come back. There's a net migration north into Collin County, which has tended to make Collin County more conservative,
Right, it's
probably.
impoverishing Dallas.
But in Dallas, if you look at the alignment between certain demographic groups and which parties they tend to vote for,
Right.
the demographics in Dallas County the direction is in away from traditionally Republican groups and in the direction of traditionally Democrat groups. So got a lot of the people that still live in Dallas County are older. They
Right.
just are still living in the house they've lived in for 50 years.
Right.
And they're just going to live there, but then they're going to be passing on. The people that move into that house are probably a very different demographic than the folks that live there now. And the younger people are tending to move up to, Plano or Frisco, or there's a lot of that migration that's going on. So.
Well, on that note, let's take another real quick break, and we'll come back and we'll talk about the upcoming convention and what to look for in the future. We'll be right back.
Whoa, hang on to your hat, folks. More with Warren Nord when we get back. Y'all are back here listening to the White Hat Law Show. Warren, who do we have up next?
Welcome back. We're still talking with Ken Emanuelson and Fran Rhodes of the Dallas and Tarrant County Tea Party areas. Let's talk about upcoming convention. And by the time this airs, it'll be, I hope, for the convention next week, but we'll see. We have a big fight on the party chair level. Tell me about that. Fran, where are you on that?
I'm a James Dickey supporter. I supported him when he ran last summer when Chairman Meckler resigned. And I think he's done an excellent job. I think he's given the grassroots of the party a voice against the establishment side of the party that doesn't seem to like grassroots activists. We're the more conservative side of the coin, and James has given us a voice. He's enforced the platform. He's insisted that representatives and elected officials adhere to the platform. He's called them out on it when they don't, and I just think that's fabulous, and I want to see more of it. He's also doing a good job of fundraising and outreach, and I'm going to vote for James and Alma Jackson.
What do you think?
100% behind James Dickey. I don't even know what the argument is against James Dickey. The only, I think I echo everything she said. James has been a great leader of this party at the state level.
I love the idea of the party sending people to the committees to testify, to say, this is what the platform says.
Absolutely right.
Hello.
Absolutely, yeah. And there are from what I can tell, the only energy behind a challenge to James is the same group of folks that are mad as hell that we no longer have Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst in there.
Right.
They're angry that senators like Corona and Dewell are gone from
There seems to be a Dewhurst Strauss followers.
Yes, they're the ones that have been in power for decades. They've had the controls. They don't have the controls now, and the James's leadership is part of a reflection of that, but it's not. It goes well beyond that, but they're just frustrated that they're no longer running the show. They're used to running the show lock, stock, and barrel, and they don't have that anymore, and they're mad about it. So they want someone who will empower them again. I hate to tell them, but I'm pretty sure those days are not coming back. They should just, they should just be true to their principles. Some of them just move over to the party that more fits what they believe in their heart. And
don't tell them that, Ken. Tell them,
sorry,
but
it's
upon
true.
a further reflection, you'll find that what we're doing is really the right thing. It's really not that bad to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, these are the people that I have these conversations with people, and they'll say, "I'm a Republican, but I'm not on board for all this. You got some of you conservatives. You're against any gun control. You're always against tax increases. You're always against any kind of spending for anything. You're always against and it's just, and they go down the list, and then basically they say, I'm a Republican, but all that platform stuff in the platform, that's the problem. I don't really buy into that. I don't understand the logic there. If you don't believe in anything in the platform, if you don't buy into the social conservative side of the platform, you don't buy into the economics conservative side of the platform, why are you here? I just got to be honest. That's what my question is why are you here?
We have a lot of those in Arlington, right? People, but this is what I think. I think that they want to believe they're conservative. And if you're talking about faraway things that are what's going on in D.C. or farm subsidies or something like that, those kinds of things, and they're right there with you. But as you get closer to home, they have this belief that because they're in control, that the socialist collectivist viewpoint is okay because they're in charge. Right. We don't want money going from the federal government to tell this company that they can advertise in Europe. That's a huge waste of money. But it's different when Austin is giving money to movie theater groups to make movies here in Texas. That's different because they're in charge. And so they're only conservatives in theory and whenever it's easy, but they're really cronyous when it gets down to it. And they don't see why socialism doesn't work. They just know that it doesn't work when they're not in charge. And so
they think that, I mean, they're a little bit like the ones who say, well, you know, you try and pin communism on the Soviet Union and on the, on the Chinese communists, but that wasn't real communism.
Right.
That wasn't real communism. You know, real communism would be awesome, but that wasn't real communism.
So we could be a little kind to them and say they're just misguided, but we do want to hit 51%. So we want these guys to stay in the party, but just open the mind to actually being conservative and trusting the market. So I anticipate Dickey just winning again.
I can't imagine that. I mean, I wouldn't want anybody to get complacent.
Right.
You know, do everything you can to make sure that James. But I just, it would be hard for me to believe. That
to me, it's going to be a real reflection of the people walking around with another sticker on there.
I mean, and I'll bet you I can name you exactly who will be wearing those stickers. At least from our area, I can tell you who will be wearing them.
Whoever was supporting Dewhurst against Cruz.
Dewhurst people.
And whoever was supporting Strauss against any challenger. Those guys will be wearing the stickers. And they'll just, to me, it's just saying, yeah, I don't quite get it. I don't quite get it. Anything in the... we always want to talk about the future. You see anything in the near future? I mean, I know I think we pretty much beat up all the people that are challenging all of our good stalwarts, and certainly in Tarrant County. Tony did not have a challenger this time. Stickland didn't have a challenger this time, and the time before that, he had a strong contender.
Every time before this.
So I think that we've beaten that out of them. Who is left to? I mean, you guys have a whole bunch of people that you can try to work with.
Well, in Dallas County, we have to. Our big concern right now is in November. We actually could see some of our Republicans that we just got through the primaries have trouble in November. We obviously don't know what that's going to look like, but there's a little bit of a concern that we might see a replay of 2006, which was this still nationwide wipeout of Republicans. So I think that's looking. Is that the year
that Dallas went?
Yes, that's the year that Dallas went to the Democrats and stayed there forever, ever since. But the numbers are looking better. Your generic ballots nationally, and these it's the weirdest thing. But we talk about 50 laboratories of democracy and blah blah, and everybody But the reality is these numbers just rise and fall together as far as how the fortunes of the Republicans and the fortunes of the Democrats. And so what we could, I think the numbers are looking better, more even, 50-50, so we may not see too much changes. But we have districts in Dallas County where in the last election, Hillary Clinton, it's a Republican district, but Hillary Clinton actually won it. Now, part of that was that she was running against Donald Trump, and there were some Republicans probably that voted for Hillary. But we've got
performance matters, right?
Yeah.
And so now we have a couple of years of Trump.
Yeah.
So
well, we've got a congressional district, and I've kind of got mixed feelings about this. I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble right now, but I'm not a big fan of Pete Sessions, and this is I've helped primary challenges to him the last 2 cycles. But he actually, his district last time around went for Hillary. And so it's possible that he could be defeated in November. Now, if there's a Republican that's going to lose their seat, I mean, he's among the ones that really deserve it. But if that one seat was to be, if the control of the House was to come down to one seat, that might be cutting off your nose to spite your face. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I've got mixed feelings about it. I would not want to see Speaker Nancy Pelosi return. And so I doubt that I'll be walking precincts for Pete Sessions and going into November. But it's that could happen. He could be in jeopardy.
Well, of course, Trump has brought in the era of the successful populist, which I'm kind of surprised that we don't have a higher minimum wage yet and single payer. That's what I predicted when Trump was coming. I said he'd be great on regulation because he's a businessman and has actually dealt with it before, but he's a populist, and so if everybody's in favor of it, but it's turned out that he's been really pretty good, except for the social media angle. Everybody in the world wants to go, oh, please, somebody grab hold of that.
His Twitter account, I tell you,
But, he's doing a lot of right things.
He has been.
Justice Gorsuch is a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as he doesn't tweet something too crazy and he continues to do the good job that he's been doing.
I love Donald Trump's tweets.
But 80% of the time, sure. But there's that, you want to go, really?
He's keeping everybody on their toes.
There's no doubt. And there's those people that say that he'll do it just to get people riled up, just say, watch me. I love him. He's trolling the entire media.
He's controlling the narrative.
On what was that he did not too long ago? Calling the MS-13 as animals.
Yeah.
And then he has another press release where he calls them animals again. And it's like, man, he just, here's another one.
Right.
So that one's kind of fun. I like that. But there you go.
And then he had, I think, Homeland Security put out a report.
That was the end. Yes, it's like, look, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
That one I think was actually, I'm 100% with him on that.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's the good stuff,
and that's,
right?
that's the kind of trolling I can get behind. The problems I have with him are where he kind of, I think, creates some problems for himself.
When he's doing well and it's having a good week, and he'll take attention away from the good things he's doing.
Exactly. I've seen him do that, and that's what I get cringe about, is that there will be some great numbers come out, let's say on unemployment or something, some great news item comes out, which should be, you almost have, the news media is almost compelled to cover it because it's a big deal, and then Trump will tweet something that completely steps on his own media. That's when it's frustrating.
Yeah.
That's when that happens.
But so far, so good, right? I mean, I'll take those missteps if we can continue to perform.
He's been doing, most of the time he's been doing the right thing.
And we can only hope that'll help our marginal Republicans in the fall. Well, thank you guys. We're going to see you all next week in San Antonio for the state convention. And with that, we'll say adieu, and we'll see you next time on White Hat Law. Thanks. Goodbye. Soon.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and we want to thank you for listening to the White Hat Law Show here with Warren Norrid. To find out more about Warren, check him out at norridlaw.com. See you next time.